Political categories are destroying the very essence of our humanity, and I will tell you why in a moment. But, my friends, as I always begin my videos off saying, if you enjoy my message and appreciate my voice, I ask you to do one thing. Please subscribe and maybe like this video. It helps me continue to get the message out. Now, let us get into this message. My friends, first of all, apologies for my absence. I've been absent because I've been dealing with school and a lot of other things. But over the course of my absence, a lot of things have occurred in our political atmosphere. And one of the things that has occurred in the American political atmosphere, was the defeat of Larry Elder in the California recall elections. Now, my friends, I have known about Larry Elder for many, many years. I think Larry Elder is a brilliant man. I think that he is someone who everyone should listen to because he has reasoned arguments that are rooted in empiricism and in the spirit of epistemic humility. And anyone who operates like that, no matter if they are a leftist or they are on the right, you should listen to them because they have something valuable to add to your understanding of the world. Well, I didn't really expect Elder to win, even though I desperately wanted him to, but I did expect him to shake up the intellectual pretensions that underpin, the sort of intellectual pretentious pylons that underpin the bridges of the intelligentsia, that underpin the roadways and the avenues and the junctions by which they travel and get their messages out to us and then try to convince us of their opinions, and he most certainly did. In fact, the fact that he did that is evidenced by the deluge of anti-individualistic rhetoric, which spewed from the mouth of several media outlets against Elder. So, for example, the LA Times famously called Elder the black face of white supremacy, a claim, a charge that he took throughout the campaign and ridiculed, as he should have. But there have been also less notable but equally as pernicious assaults on Elder's spiritual composition, lobbed by the LA Times and other publications. The LA Times called him a model minority, basically arguing that conservatives use Larry Elder to voice their opinion so they don't get accused of being racist, and therefore he is a model minority. He's a black face to what they call the ideas of white supremacy. They called him a threat to black and Latino Californians, and he would be a threat if he got elected. The Grio, which is an African-American based publication, called him a white supremacy soldier. In fact, the tagline to that article said, "Elder's positions are typical right-wing mumbo-jumbo that you would hear from Fox News. But of course, it's all the more pernicious when it comes from a black mouth." Brian Stelter allowed LA Times columnist Jean Giro, I'm probably not even pronouncing that right, but I don't care, she does not deserve respect, to even call Elder a white supremacist on his program. My friends, when I think of this, I have a visceral reaction, as do most of us, but if we allow our reactions to remain visceral and emotional and angry, we don't get to the root of our issue, my friend. You have to be able to understand that these things have an intellectual genesis that can be traced back to their foundations and they can be defeated with an equal amount of intellectual firepower. What do I mean? My friends, the genesis of these charges isn't simply that Elder is a black man saying ideas that are unpopular for black folks to say in modern day America, although that is a symptom of this mindset, being able to divorce someone's individuality, someone's humanity from what they're saying. But the genesis is in an idea I call political, and is more broadly called political categories. When we try to define people in light of the ideas, the general broad political ideas they hold. This is a practice undertaken by many individuals in the political landscape, whether it's pollsters who try to define individuals by their demographics and their voting habits, whether it's political scientists who also try to do the same exact thing, and they try to define individuals more broadly by their religious habits or their social habits or their age. No matter what category it is, almost every single distinctive aspect of the human being has become used for political understanding. Now, understandably, we use categories for a reason, my friends. We use categories because categories help us understand very broad and almost incalculable concepts in a calculable way. This is actually why many academic subjects like mathematics or science use scientific notation, because when you have a big equation out that has an innumerable amount of numbers, then you're going to have to be able to conceptualize it to something that you can at least understand. The human brain, my friends, can only understand so much. As Alfred North Whitehead, the philosopher, said, we live in a world of infinite possibilities, but yet we ourselves are beings of finite capacity. So in our finitude, that requires us to be humble in the assumptions we make and how we make those assumptions. But the media, my friend, particularly the LA Times, the Grio, CNN, and people who are against elders' political beliefs evidently don't have that humility. But in the haze of losing that humility, my friends, the media also loses their sight of what it means to be a human being. My friends, a human being is not simply a demographic that votes for a certain political party. A human being is not simply an age group that has a certain set of trends and the general understanding of them. A human being is not simply a gender which you think should be fighting for certain things because it's for their benefit, allegedly. A human being is something so much more, something so much precious. A human being stands independent, my friends, of social distinctions and categories, and then comes into society to have their multifaceted being protected from the terrors of the world, and from other human beings who have been corrupted in their understanding of what it means to be a human being, have been corrupted in their understanding of respecting other human beings by virtue of their rights, and then would seek to harm them because of that corrupt idea. But instead of recognizing that very foundational fact, which Locke understood, the American founders understood, the natural authors understood, that so many people understood, anyone who has the word rights in their mouth, the true understanding of word right in their mouth, understood, instead of acknowledging that, they contort the human being and twist the human being into a political creature. Man is no longer simply a social animal, a being that can exist outside of society, but in part needs society for fulfillment. No, man is now someone who needs society simply to be man. And this is what Aristotle would say. Aristotle would say that the polis helps you be the highest version of yourself. And this sort of tyrannical idea, which ties my validity as a human being to institutions, which ties my validity as a human being to external validation, is the idea that is being used to rip elder to shreds, or to try to rip elder to shreds. Because in all honesty, when you have a positive self-perception and you know the core of what your being is, when you know the truth of what your being is, nothing like this can actually impact you. Which is why they hate elder. Because elder is unapologetically standing upon his propositions, rooting them in truth, and all a lot of his detractors have are simple insults. Is this to say that elder is correct all the time? Of course not. We all have our flaws. We are all flawed human beings. But epistemic humility has to be the prerequisite for intellectual inquiry. And if the folks who are criticizing do not have intellectual inquiry, what does that mean? They can't engage in understanding. So we've recast the human being as a political man, as a solely political man. And we understand him not through his desires, not through that which corresponds outside of social or political situations, but we understand him through what we attribute to that political category. So if we think that a woman ought to be concerned in support of abortion, the political woman, under this variation of the human being, would be concerned about abortion. If we think a black person ought to be concerned about voter rights or whatever other abstract category is appended to black existence, then we say, okay, this black person, if you want to be for black folks, ought to be concerned about voter rights. But the problem with this broad abstract approach to politics is that it ignores the multitudes of our existence. And it ignores the fact that my conscience and my will, my friends, exist independent of whatever immutable characteristic I have. This is not to say there's nothing biologically significant about being a woman. Of course there is. There's a school of thought right now that rejects that idea, and that school of thought is absolutely wrong. It goes against reality. Of course there is. But is this to say there's something epistemically meaningful about being a woman, about your positions about being a woman? Of course not. There is nothing epistemically meaningful about being a man or woman, other than the fact that you have certain genitalia in certain physiological compositions. Other than that, there's nothing about ethics that is inferred from you being a man or woman. There's nothing about duty, in my opinion, that should be inferred about you being a man or woman. And the same thing follows about being black, white, or whatever. There's nothing that can be inferred from these arbitrary, immutable traits, because they themselves have no meaning outside of social context. So if these ideas, now again, male and female have meaning outside of social context, yes they do. But what I'm saying is, You can't take these broad ideas and then have a set of expectations for these broad ideas, then append them on certain people, and then expect people to follow them blindly without any rational thought, without any challenge. And if they challenge it, they're being less of a woman, less of a man, less of a black person. Or in the words of Elder, or the words of people who criticize Elder, they're being less of a human being, less of a good person, because allegedly they're fighting for white supremacy. And to address this idea of white supremacy, my friends, anything that is deemed against the sort of intelligentsia that has been guiding black folk for a very long time, since the 60s, even before then, that has been trying to mire them in grievance forever, that has been trying to enmesh them in a sense of anger and despair. Anything against that is called white supremacy. Anything that is associated with European geography is called white supremacy. But I think this approach to understanding positions, by calling them white supremacist, is actually a reflection of the same issue I've been talking about. And that issue is this, my friends. Do we really understand concepts and ideas solely through what they're associated with? Or do these ideas stand alone? Does the idea of individual freedom, which is oftentimes derided as a white supremacist construct, does that stand alone? Does the idea of individual autonomy and negative rights, the government being there to protect your rights, which is again associated with the European Enlightenment, does that idea stand alone from the European Enlightenment? Of course it does. There are revealed truths, my friends, not artificial truths. And yet, it seems to me that almost every single day I open my eyes and I see our political context, and it's almost always about convincing us that artificial truths are the dominant idea, and revealed truths are simply chimeras which have nothing meaningful to offer us. Well, as someone who believes very strongly in truth, and someone whose spirit burns for intellectual integrity, I will not accept the idea that being black is meaningful beyond what people in society give it. I will not accept the idea that holding certain positions means that I'm for oppressors simply because those positions are unpopular. I will not accept the idea that you can understand me as a political man, but instead you can understand me as a man and more broadly as an individual, as a spiritual being who contains multitudes. I will not accept anything that goes contrary to that principle, and neither should you. Because the moment you do that is the moment you become not only less than truthful, you at that point truly become less than human, because you're allowing yourself to be willingly sacrificed on the altar of anti-human ideals. Think on it. My friends, I love you. If you love me, patreon.com/PhilCWatson or PayPal, official cwatson@gmail.com, or please join my Discord, which is in the link down, comment section down below, or my locals. We have locals too. I'm working on it. ChristianWatson.locals.com. My friends, I love you guys so much, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.